The book of Esther is an exciting and yet curious book in the Bible. The story is set over 100 years after the nation of Israel was exiled from their land for worshipping other gods. Yet God had not given up on his people. He graciously promised to restore them if they would turn back to him. The book of Esther focuses on the Jewish community living in Susa, the capital of the ancient Persian Empire. The main characters are Mordecai and Esther. There's also Xerxes, the king of Persia, often a drunken man, and a Persian official called Haman, the cunning villain. The book of Esther is about how God providentially cares for and protects his people as they face opposition. In fact, to spoil the story, Esther becomes the queen and together with Mordecai helps the Jews. By the end of the story, the Jews find deliverance from certain death. Yet all of these things happen despite the fact that God is never mentioned, not even once. In the book of Esther, the author invites us to read this story looking for God's activity, and there are signs of it everywhere. The story is full of many coincidences and ironic reversals. Through it all, we come to know of the unseen God at work behind the scenes. Let's dive in with a recap from last week. From her courageous words, Esther puts her plans into action. She went to the king, unsummoned, and was pardoned by the king. She then hosts Haman and the king in the first banquet, and there she says she wants to make a special request to both of them to come again for an exclusive banquet the following day. Haman leaves the banquet, joyful at his high position, but when he sees Mordecai on the streets, he fumes in anger. He orders a tall pole to be built so that Mordecai can be killed on it. In his arrogance and pride, he believed that the king would agree to this request. It seems like things cannot get any worse for the Jews and for Mordecai. But all of a sudden, the story pivots. It just so happens that night, the king has insomnia and couldn't sleep. And of all the things he can be doing, he just happens to ask that the royal chronicles be read to him. And of all the things he could read, he just happens to hear of how Mordecai saved his life. He had totally forgotten. The next morning, Haman sees the king to request for Mordecai's execution. But instead, at that moment, the king orders Haman to honor Mordecai publicly for saving his life. Now Haman has to lead Mordecai around the city on a horse, telling everyone to praise him. From this moment, the story now shows Haman's downfall and Mordecai's rise to power from all that has happened behind the scenes. The next day, at Esther's second banquet, the king and Haman arrives. Esther informs the king that she is in fact Jewish, and that Haman has enacted a decree to murder her, murder Mordecai, who saved his life, and murder all the Jews. The king was drunk again, and so when he hears this news, he goes into another drunken rage. In the end, the king orders that Haman be hung on the same tall pole he had made to murder Mordecai. What a tragic end to his life.
Amen. Good morning, Hope Singapore. To all our friends here in Axis, all our regional center, Northeast Center, West Center, and for all our friends watching us live on the internet, we warmly welcome you. Your presence is a privilege, and we are so blessed by your presence. Now, my friends, we are on this God Behind the Scene series, and beginning of the series, Pastor Danny shared about these silent workings of God. Just not look at the extraordinaries or the supernatural. Mindful. Let's look at the things that are ordinary. Coincidences, coincidences, coincidences. Coincidences are not random incidents. Coincidence can be instances of God's providence. And last week, Pastor Jeff shared with us faith that dares. As he flexes his biceps, he's teaching us, let's embrace disruption. When disruption comes, we do not have to run away from it. Let's embrace disruption, because through disruption, that's where our faith is stretched. That's where we get stronger in our faith. This morning, Esther chapter 6 to 7, the pride before the fall. Preaching to you from Esther chapter 6 to 7. Now, it's a wonderful book here that we want to talk about pride. What is it about pride? We all know pride. And the Webster Dictionary definition of pride is this. In a negative sense, pride, a spirit of conceit, a superior sense of self-worth. That's the negative. And then there's a positive side. Pride. It is a sense of satisfaction and a sense of contentment and proper self-worth. But you look at the Bible, pride is many a times or in most occasions used negatively. In the first instance, a spirit of conceit, a sense of feeling superior than others. Now, C.S. Lewis said this, pride is like bad breath. Everyone else knows it but yourself. That's how they define pride. And let's look at a story this morning, chapter 6 to 7, 2 chapters, long chapters. But I'll bring you through the story. Let's look at pride's deception and pride's ultimate destruction. And so the story goes, that night, the king couldn't sleep. Verse 1. What happens when he couldn't sleep? So he ordered for the book of the Chronicles, the record of his reign to be brought in and read to him. And so King Xerxes wasn't able to sleep. What's the best thing to do? Do some reading. So he called for the royal attendant, bring me my royal Kindle. And so the royal attendant went to bring the royal Kindle inside. Now, put on audio mode. I want to listen to my history. Hopefully, when I listen to my history, I'll be bored and I'll fall asleep. So then King Xerxes was lying on the bed and then, okay, read it to me. Read my history. And so it was read out. And as the history was being read, and it was found, verse 2, it was found recorded there that Mordecai had exposed Bigthana and Teresh. The plot of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, who conspired to kill King Xerxes. Now, that got King Xerxes' interest. Oh, I remember that incident. Those two eunuchs, one was a eunuch, the other I'm not sure, said, investigated. I treated them so well, but they double-crossed me. And they said, now he asked the attendant, now what honor and recognition was given Mordecai? And then the royal chronicle, flip. Nothing has been done. Cannot be, King Xerxes says. It is to the king's honor that anyone who does good will be rewarded. Did Mordecai get a promotion? No. Pay increment? No. Off in lieu, how about that? Also don't have. How about letter of commendation? The royal chronicle says, nothing has been done for him. The king rose from his bed. Now he can't fall asleep, can't sleep. Rose from his bed. Who is in the courts? The king now wants to seek advice. Now it's dead early in the morning. The attendant says, who can be there in the courts early in the morning? But anyway, I'll check. The attendant ran out into the outer courts. And just as he went out to the outer courts, now Haman has just entered the outer courts. He wants to speak to the king about impaling Mordecai on the pole he has set up for him. Apparently, Haman is also having a sleepless night. He also couldn't sleep. At the crack of dawn, he's already in the court, standing at the outer courts, waiting to be summoned by the king. Now, if you read history, something about Persian court rule. Now, the thing is this. If the king doesn't summon you, right, you cannot go and see the king. You can only see the king when he summons you. And how does the king rule his sprawling empire? It's not ruled by law. It's ruled by his decree. Whatever he says is the law. Whatever he signs with his signet ring, it's as good as law. So Haman was anxious. I really need to speak to the king. If you recall and you read chapter 5, Haman was already second in command. He had everything he had. But then there was not enough. There was this pesky little guy, Mordecai, who failed to pay respect to him. And he was very angry with Mordecai. So his wife gave him an evil plot. He says, you know what, my husband, you can set up a long pole, 50 cubits, 25 meters, and then use that pole, right, and then poke Mordecai. Impale Mordecai. Kill Mordecai, the guy that you hate. And to Haman, he said, wow, that's a good plan. And he can't wait. He was impatient. So verse 4 went to see the king. Verse 5, then the king said, bring Haman in. And so verse 6 comes the story. Haman before the audience of King Xerxes. Greetings, king. And King Xerxes says, my most trusted advisor. And then Haman says, you know, my lord, anytime you need me, I will be there. I am always closed, never closed. 7-Eleven. You need me, I will be there. Well, Haman has got his agenda. The king has got something on his mind. Then he says, now Haman, tell me what should be done for the man that the king delights to honor. And when Haman hears that, he was laughing. He says, for who is there that the king would rather honor than me? Of course, not so blatant, my friend. He was thinking to himself in his heart. He says, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? So then here's the thing about pride. It is deceptive. And the story goes from verse 6. It's not just only deceptive. It is presumptuous. Pride is presumptuous. Presumptuous means I am better. True, not true? When we are prideful, we always think that we are better. The definition is a spirit of conceit and of superior worth than others. I'll give you a context. Why was Haman so proud? Why would he assume, or rather, that the king would honor him? Because he was thinking to himself, who would the king rather honor than me? Some context here. Now, if you read the book of Esther, if you know Haman's name in Hebrew, what does it mean? It means magnificent. Imagine as a kid, right? You grew up with that kind of name. This is my son, magnificent. And then you grow up, you go into the working world. Let me introduce myself. I'm magnificent to your boss. Or maybe when you are married, you say, this is my wife. Isn't she pretty? But guess what? I'm magnificent. Now the thing here is this. Now Haman has got this megalomaniac kind of mentality. And then the thing here is this. I keep asking myself this question when I read the book of Esther. So what is this about Haman that is so fantastic about him? What about his achievement? What did he do? Why did he rose to second in command in the kingdom? That everybody got to bow down to him. I read, and actually nothing, you know. Nothing. Nothing to his credit, nothing of his achievement. If you read Esther chapter 2, verse 21 to 31, verse 21 to 23, in fact, the thing here was this story is very interesting. Mordecai was Mordecai was Esther's cousin. Mordecai was the one who exposed the plot. What plot? The plot to assassinate King Xerxes. So, chapter 2, verse 21, it says Mordecai was at the king's gate, and then he heard this gossip about assassination, and then he told Esther, to go and tell the king, and then the king heard of the rumor, investigated, it was real, and then, verse 23, the two guys killed, executed because of their intention to assassinate King Xerxes. So that was how the story ended in chapter 2. And then look at Esther chapter 3, verse 1. Quickly, flip your Bible. Take a look at it. What happens? Mordecai did a great stuff, great deed. What happens? Haman got a promotion. Angry, right? Esther chapter 3, verse 1. Then the king promoted Haman the Agagite. Wow, second in command. And then when I was reading that story, I was scratching my head. Oh, the author is really a fantastic storyteller, right? I can identify, no? You do all the hard work, right? Then somebody else get the recognition. You did all the good things, right? Then the person who did nothing gets the promotion. And then that's the thing about Haman. He did nothing, precisely. He did nothing, and then he was promoted second in command, and now then he has hatched this evil plot to kill off Mordecai. So presumptuous. Pride is presumptuous. You know, I'm better. You're not good. I'm better. But in our modern days, some of our friends will be thinking, people nowadays are not so blatant. People won't boast about themselves openly, you know, how good they are, how rich they are, how fantastic they are. You know, there's this thing now, a modern definition. You call this what? Humble brag. You know? Anyone knows humble bragging? Oh, not very many people know. Okay. Humble brag. I give you a definition. Humble brag is this. It is to make a self-deprecating statement with the intention to show off and to show off something you are proud of. Still not sure why it's humble brag, right? Here's a video. Take a look. Humble brag.
Oh my god. So my boyfriend got me this Chanel bag for our first monthsary, and he made me breakfast in bed and got me tickets to a musical. Like seriously, first month only, can you like chill or not? Oh my god, don't need to put in so much effort. Oh my god, I know it's so annoying. Like no matter how much I eat, right, I just can't get fat. Oh my god, you only have 10 followers on Instagram? Oh my god, you're so lucky I have like 1,000, right? And I feel like my life isn't private anymore. Seriously, it's so tough to be famous. Oh my god, seriously, I just keep getting so many notifications. Why people keep liking my photos? Oh my god, you know I can't decide what song to listen to on my Stingray music app because it's just like so many. Like see, there's like Bollywood, Chinese, Cantonese, English. There's even Ge Thai. Oh my god, you know every single time I wear these like limited edition white highlighter glow in the dark, only 5 in the world shoes. Like it's so hard to walk because I need to be sure like it doesn't get dirty and everything. Oh my god, Charles, you walk to work today, is it? Oh my god, you know I was gonna walk to work today, then my dad like insisted that he drive me because he was like, oh, I don't need to sweat in your new Supreme shirt. So I was like, okay lor.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Wow, I totally know how you feel, man. I mean, one of my 2 personal drivers insisted on sending me to work today, but then the Maserati was under maintenance. So no choice, we had to use the limousine. But then the limousine was too long, so it couldn't fit in the roundabout. So that's why, you know, he couldn't drop me off at the office lobby lah. Then I had to walk in. But I mean, what to do, right? Then,
Humble bragging, now just for laughs. But then you see that many times in social media, people giving self-deprecating statement with the intention of boasting or showing off what they have. Now, I've seen it many times. People will say, put it on their Facebook, Instagram, it says, oh, work is hectic, man. It's killing me. If not for the 5-figure pay, right, I would have quit the job. Subtly, they are telling you, I've got a good pay. Or some people will tell you, you know, I just woke up from bed, and then I just put on my t-shirt, wear my slipper, went out in the supermarket, and then guess what? There's so many weird guys trying to hit on me, talk to me. Subtly, they are trying to tell you, I am pretty, lor. Even if I don't make up or dress up, guys will still try to hit me on. Now, I've seen some of my friends, I look at the Instagram now, there was a recent one. Oh, one very, very artful, very subtle, very powerful kind of self-breaking. He was saying he crashed his car. Then he put a photo. Then the photo won't show you the brand of the car, show you the rear of the car that was crashed up badly. But then you know it's a branded car. And then he will put a statement, write something there. Oh no, I crashed my car. The mechanic told me, cannot fix. Got to buy a new one. And then he was asking, with my tight budget, Audi or BM? Then I was like, wow, Audi or BM? For me, I was thinking if I get a car, I'll be so happy. Humble brag. Why the people nowadays, like, they won't boast, they won't be presumptuous in a sense, show off, like, I have all the things in my life you don't have. But they will, it's a more subtle form. It's a more subtle, sometimes they even feel like they are being humble, but you know, they're actually deceiving themselves. So the thing here is this. Now, Haman was all feeling good about himself. I'm magnificent. You know, there's no one else. The achievement, the king has got to honor me. And so then in verse 7, Haman declares, for the man that the king delights to honor. And then he says now, verse 8, verse 9, he says now, for the man that the king delights to honor, king, this is what you can do. Give the man a royal robe. Not just any royal robe. A royal robe that the king has worn. Give the man a royal horse. Not just any royal horse. It has got to be the royal horse that the king has ridden. Not enough. Put all this and trust it to the king's most noble or prince, and get them to put the robe on the man, put the man on the horse, pull the horse into the streets, go on a procession. Verse 9, to declare, this is what is done for the man that the king delights to honor. If you are discerning enough, then you know where I'm getting at. Pride is insatiable. Greed, I want more, If I have more, I want more. Pride is insatiable. Now let me ask you a question. You want to wear the robe that the king has worn. You want to ride a horse that the king has ridden. And then you want the king's treatment from the prince. What is the intention? To be the king. Isn't it true? I want all this. I want to be like a king. I can imagine Haman when he was proposing that suggestion to the king. He was like imagining himself on the horse with the robe, on the procession, proclaiming, and then he was like laughing. And then the king interrupted him. He says, good. Verse 10, go at once. Go and do what you have suggested. The king took down his robe. Give to Haman. Take the robe. I want it. And then take my car key. Ferrari limited edition. In the whole world, not many people have. Only I have. Take the key. Take the robe. And then Haman take the robe, take the key. Wow, very happy. He said, really, you are giving me? And then the king says, go. Go where? Go home, is it? No, go to the king's gate. And then look for Mordecai the Jew. And do everything that you have recommended. Do not neglect to do everything that you have recommended. Haman says, huh? And then suddenly there was a rush of blood going to his head. He was feeling hot in the cheeks. It was as if somebody has given him one tight step. Humiliation. Just before that, in verse 7, he was assuming that he's going to be the one that will be honored. But now, what? I'm going to honor Mordecai, the guy that I wanted to kill off. It's an utter humiliation. So I said to you, pride is presumptuous, insatiable. When we have more, we want more. And now then, here is this. To defy the king, right, in verse 10, right, the king has given his decree. To defy the king is death. So what to do? Have to do lah. Got to go. Went to the king's gate. Look for Mordecai. He's sitting there at the king's gate. Some history here, just a side note here. We hear when we read the book of Esther, there's a lot of story that's talk about the king's gate. Any Bible scholar and historians here? Can you raise your hand? Or even out of centers? If you are here, right, can you leave the room? Just in case what I share, right, different from your understanding. Tell me something about the king's gate. The king's gate is an interface between the city and the king's palace. So at the king's gate, right, it's like a parade square. The king's gate is a place where deals are done, gossips are heard, politics are made. People will go to the king's gate. Talented people will go to the king's gate. They will await for their opportunity so that they can be summoned by the king or perhaps meet someone in high position. They can get employed and they can serve in the palace. Of course, in the king's gate, there will be some shoddy, slimy, slippery kind of character who is lurking around in the king's gate, looking out for opportunities. The king's gate is a place of opportunity. It could also be a place for promotion. It's also a place where the not so good stuff is happening. So that's the king's gate, and that's where Mordecai was. Now, what was Mordecai sitting at the king's gate doing? He was waiting. Those assigned as the advisors would always wait at the king's gate. At the king's summon, they will seek audience with the king. So there Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. Haman went to Mordecai. He got to put the robe on Mordecai, put Mordecai on the horse, pull the horse into the city streets, on a procession, verse 11, declare, this is what is done for the man that the king delights to honor. From the crack of dawn in the morning, all the way into the late afternoon, Haman was pulling the horse on the streets, going on procession, shouting, proclaiming. I can tell you that people in the streets were cheering, Mordecai, whoa! Some may be sniggering at Haman. But what happened was, Haman got his due of humiliation. Haman got his due of humiliation and Mordecai got his exaltation. He got his honor, he got his recognition. So everything, the ordeal ended, verse 12, Haman, Mordecai went back to the king's gate, back to square one. Haman rushed back home with his head covered in grief. Then the thing here is this. If you read carefully, it said, why Haman covered his head in grief? Well, I know he was humiliated. What he wanted to do didn't happen. But why was he covering his head in grief? In grief means what? You are the victim, right? But Haman is not the victim. He was actually the victimizer. He was actually the one who wanted to plot to destroy Mordecai. But Haman covered his head in grief, went back home crying. His legs were aching, and then his voice was breaking, and then his heart was aching. Went back home, spoke to the wife, verse 13, told the wife, you know what has happened? Told a friend, you know what has happened? The ordeal that he went through. Then the thing here is this. Pride is not only presumptuous, it causes us to be insatiable in our appetite. It is also, it gives you a sense of self-entitlement. When things don't go your way, how is your response? When things didn't go out the way Haman intended to, he was in grief. He felt that he was the victim. Be mindful. Pride causes us to have this sense of self-entitlement. A story of a guy called Ramesh. Everybody would have known Ramesh Iramali. Yes? 8 River Suites. The condo sounds familiar? Let's have that. Let's show that. He was raving about his $1.5 million property, renting at the security staff for charging him $10 for the parking ticket. He was saying, I have the rights to park here because I bought a $1.5 million property. The raving and the ranting, and then the long and short of it was, of course, he didn't get his way. The security staff was just trying to do his job. And then what happened to Ramesh Iramali was this. He received mob justice. He was doxxed. His particular, where he works, his name, everything, all on the internet for people to see. You know, when I read the story, I said, you see lah, people like that, self-entitlement. They think they are rich, then they can do all sort of things, shout at people. Not nice. And then when I was thinking about that, then I said, hey, suddenly I realized, actually, I also have a sense of self-entitlement. Then I recall something very recent that happened. I also stay in a condo. And then in a condo, they have you are assigned parking lots, right? And then, I don't know for what happened, I've been staying there for the past years, right? I get this parking ticket. He says, vehicle number this. You are not allowed to park here. This lot is only for residents. Huh? What happened? You mean I don't stay here? So I got this. I said, maybe the security staff made a mistake. So I just took the ticket, I just crumpled it, I just put it aside. And then next day, vehicle this. You're not allowed to park here. It is for the resident. Please remove your car. I said, second time, I was getting a bit peeved. Never mind. I think new security staff. So on the third day, I see it again. I took the paper. I was feeling unjustified. So I went to the security staff. Okay, mind you, I didn't shout the 4-letter expletives. I wasn't raving about I don't have a $1.5 million condo. I went to the security staff. Hey, this one, bro, not right, leh. I stay here, you know. How come you put this on me? And then the security staff was polite. He says, because new management initiative, a lot of illegal parking. So whoever never put up the car decal, right, we will warn them first. He says, I stay here for the past few years, leh. I never get this kind of things. He said, you never put car decal. I says, how can? I know I stay here. How can? He says, I don't know. I'm just doing my job. Call the management. So I called the management. I said, hey, not right. I'm the resident here. How come you give me ticket? Then he says, did you have a parking decal? I said, I don't remember. I don't remember, I have a parking decal. It says, let me check for you. Oh, you actually sign off for the car decal. Cannot be. You say, for this person by the name of Miss Kwek Siu Chu. Oops. My wife. Then I remembered, I actually told my wife to collect the car decal on my behalf. Then I quickly put down the phone. I speak to my wife. Hey, you got collect car decal? Yeah, you told me to collect the car decal. I put it on the car. He said, but the security said, don't have, leh. Go and check. Then, where is the car decal in my car? Then I find it, it's at the corner there, right under the sunscreen. I said, no wonder the security staff didn't realize this. You know what? When I saw the car decal, I said, oops, what happened? My attitude not very right. The way I speak to the management, I'm self-righteous. I stay here, how come you all treat me like that? You know what to do? When you are prideful, right? You have to eat what? Humble pie lah. Call management and say, sorry bro. Actually the car decal is there. Just I cannot see. I cannot see. Your security also cannot see. But I have to apologize lah. But okay. No 4-letter expletives. Okay, I was impatient, but I learned a lesson. Self-entitlement. Many times, you only know that you have this sense of self-entitlement, right? When things don't go your way and when you are tested. What do I mean by this? You drive on the road, you think you have the right to the road, and then somebody cuts you in. And then you know what it means to have self-entitlement. You get angry. You do your job, you feel that you have done your best, and then someone criticizes you for your job. Lousy. And then you get angry. Self-entitlement. Those are incidents. How about you did your best to help others, and then you found out that actually you've been taken advantage of? How would you feel? Angry. Sense of self-entitlement. I can give you many, many instances in life as believers, Christians. Perhaps you say, hey, I am contented to be single, you say. And then, until you are tested, your friend starts getting married. Your sister get married. Your good friend get married. And then you're the only one left. And then you'll be thinking to yourself, God, how come I'm the only one left not married? Or perhaps you are happily serving in the church as a volunteer, behind the scene, away from the limelight, and you thought that you're contented serving. Until then, your good friend, fellow volunteer, gets the honor and the credit. And you're thinking, how come nobody noticed me? I've been in the church serving for so long, how come the person gets the credit and the honor? Or how about in your workplace? You work hard, but you're contented, happy where you are, in your position. Then and until then, your friend, your peer gets a promotion. And now your peer is your boss. And then you'll be thinking to yourself, God, how come like that? I worked hard. I did my best, but how come they get the promotion? So then the thing here is this. 3 verses, 7, 8, and 9, but then 7 times it was mentioned, who is the man that the king delights to honor? And I ask you that question, who is the man that the king delights to honor? Now the scripture says it, I oppose the proud, I give grace to the humble, a broken spirit and a contrite heart. That I will not despise. Our God exalts people who are humble. The pride He will bring down. Pride is deceptive. And then we come to the last chapter, chapter 7. Pride is destructive. And so then, Haman doesn't have much time to think about the situation. The royal limousine is here. The royal attendant is here. He was ushered into the palace for the queen's banquet. Verse 1, he says, so hey, the king and Haman went for the queen's banquet. And verse 2, as they were drinking wine on the second day. Now mind you, my friend, it was already the second banquet that Queen Esther has set up for the king and Haman. The king was getting a bit angsty, impatient. 2 banquets, and Esther haven't tell me what she wants. So the king asked Esther, Queen Esther, what is your petition? It will be given you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted. Now, even up to half the kingdom is king speak. This is the king's way of telling you that I am feeling generous. Ask and I'll give. No royal subject in their right mind would ask the king for half the kingdom. Treason. And no king would give away half the kingdom. But it's just king speak, saying that the king is in the mood, he's feeling generous, ask. And then verse 3, pause. Esther prepares to ask. Dicey. It's a dicey situation. Why? Because Haman is the king's second in command. How should she approach the king and broach this subject? So now, verse 3 comes Esther's answer. He says, if I found favor with you, your majesty, if it pleases you, dicey, she's got to be very calculated and shrewd in her approach. And then he says, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. And then verse 4, it says this. Now, if we had been sold as slaves, I would have kept quiet. Verse 4. But we are being sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. We were just being... Esther was saying this in a cool manner. Esther can't cry. Esther can't cry and then use emotional blackmail to the king. Because why? Something uniquely Persian. Persian court's rule says this. If you are sad, sulky in front of the king, right? Death sentence. Go and read Nehemiah. Nehemiah. You will know this is Persian court rule. Uniquely Persian. So she's got to do it nonchalant way, a cool way, and then approach the king. And then, now that got the king's attention. Verse 5, he says, who is he? Where is he? The man who dared to do such a thing. Wow, here's the opportunity. Verse 6, Esther said, an adversary and enemy. Haman. Haman was like terrified. Drinking wine now says, like, I'm the person at fault. Now, important, a side note, a good lesson to learn. I think I have some time, but I want to speak to you. Husband, wives, there's a very good lesson that we can learn here from these few verses. How a wife should approach the husband. Got insights what I share with you. Now, the thing here is this. Esther, shrewd, calculated in her approach. She has got to let king know that the king is not the problem to her predicament. She has got to let the king know that the king is the solution to her situation. So, wives, next time when you approach your husband, man got ego. I'm not asking you to stroke the man's ego, but don't bruise the man's ego also. Tactful, I'm teaching you how to be shrewd when you approach your husband. Well, when you go to your husband, let your husband know that he is not the problem to the predicament. Let your husband know that he is the solution to the situation. For example, the kid not studying, not going to church. Everybody is anxious. Moms always get angsty over all this stuff. And then you go to the husband. You see, your son, not studying, and then you're not doing anything. Like you last time. Don't study, don't go church. Go and do something about it. Wrong. Wrong. That's the wrong way to approach your husband. Shrewd, calculated. Go to your husband and say, dear, something on my mind. Our son, you see, right, not doing well, study, spiritually also not going well. Let's do something about it. I know our son, you can relate to him, right? He listens to you. How about that? You go and speak to him, lah. True or not true? Wife, go back, practice. Let your husband know he is not the problem to your predicament. He is the solution to your situation. Now that's a lesson to learn. And so the story goes, the king was angry. He said, oh, who is that? Haman. Give a stare. Haman, verse 7, got up in rage, went out into the garden palace. Well, he needs to cool down. This king, temperamental one, I tell you. Temper fly anytime. So got up, angry, went into the palace garden, cooled down a bit. And then verse 7, look at the drama, man. And then Haman, realizing that his fate has already been decided, stayed behind to back Queen Esther for his life. Oh, well, the scripture doesn't tell us how long the king left. But then, here's the drama of the story. Verse 8, just as the king got back from the palace garden into the banquet hall, then Haman was falling over the couch where the queen was reclining. Oh my Lord! And then the king came in. He was looking at his royal guards, pointing to Haman, and he exclaimed, will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house? Oh, that does it. No need to find a reason to do Haman in. The royal guards came in, rushing in, held Haman up, and then covered his face. Now, also uniquely Persian. Got to explain to you some Persian protocol, right? Persian palace protocol. If not, we find it very hard to understand the story. Persian court rule, other than the eunuch and the king. Nobody, especially guys, when they come into the queen, the concubine, or the harem's presence, right, got to stay 7 steps from the queen, the harem, or the king's wife. This is Persian court rule. Anyone within 7 steps, death sentence. And so Haman did a stupid thing. Because he was begging for his life, he rushed out to Queen Esther. That's it. The story ends there. Actually, the story would end very nicely. Verse 8. Contravene, court rule, cover face, death sentence, finish. We all know the ending of the story. Then the author adds in verse 9 and 10, like a appendix. But then you read the appendix, something very meaningful. Also got lesson to learn. Then, verse 9. Verse 9 came this thing. Harbona, one of the king's eunuch attending to the king. From chapter 1 all the way to chapter 6, the eunuch never got a line to speak anything on. Then chapter 7, verse 9, first time eunuch speaks. The eunuch speaks, he says, oh my king, I know of a 50 cubit pole, 25 meters, how high? From axis, from floor all the way to the store seats. 25 meters high, standing beside Haman's house. He set it up for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king. Wow, and then the king, very angry, impale Haman on the pole. End of story. Pride's destruction. But then also a very important story to hear. Here, Haman, here a bit more lively music will do. A bit too solemn, a bit more lively again. This one you also must read the story. I'm not digressing, but another side note of the story. Harbona. If you read a leadership textbook, right, they will never give you this. I coined this the Harbona leadership or the Harbonara effect. No, not too much spaghetti. Harbona effect. Harbona response. You know that eunuch came in, eunuchs got no balls, right? Literally. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Edit it out. You know what? Serious. Eunuchs, people like Harbona will never speak up for what is right. They will only speak up for what is to their self-interest. If I'm the king, I will think, hey, You actually know that Haman set up a pole to kill Mordecai. Why didn't you tell me earlier? You know, Harbona is like the grass that sways in the wind. Wherever the wind blows, they will respond. Well, we see that many times in our workplace. True or not true? You come to your boss, they say, boss, plan A, plan B. Plan A or plan B. You tell your boss, plan A, effective, efficient, cost savings. I think we go for plan A. Then your boss see a plan A and then says, no lah, go with plan B. Then you say, why? Why? Because plan B will make our CEO look good, lor. I say, okay, lor, your boss, ma, you say what I do, lor. Then, boss, can you sign off? You want plan B or not? No need to sign off. I do, you say. Okay, you do plan B. Execute. Management meeting. CEO calls out your name. He says, hey, why did you not do plan A? Plan A, cost effective, efficient. And then you look at your CEO, and then you look at your boss. Hopefully your boss will say something, and then your boss will practice Harbona leadership. He will look at you, look at the CEO and says, hey, didn't I tell you do plan A? I told you already what. Then you know, young people, they don't listen one. You know, CEO, don't be angry. I'll get him to do plan A. Then you look at your boss, look at your CEO, you cannot say anything, you just got to keep quiet, right? We see many times in this. Anyway, this is a side note. But what I'm just telling you here is this, that I know the story here. When you read narratives, right, the story shouts at you, tells you something, but you got to reflect on the stories that's being said. I want to speak a word to some of us here this morning. In your workplace, I think this is very applicable. Marketplace. In a workplace, perhaps the King's Gate, the palace is like a workplace. Out there, you meet the Hamans who will lord over people. You meet the Harbonas. They will not speak up for what is right. They will not speak up for what's their conviction. They only speak what is to their own benefit. Sometimes you may feel that you're like the Mordecai. You did your best. You do what is right. Somehow nobody noticed. Nobody knows. But I want to tell you this. God sees. God knows. Believers, Christians, you all know for sure. Why is it that people have to be prideful? Promote their own cause? Say that they are good? Because why? Many a times people are prideful because they think that they have to fend for themselves. Well, if I don't speak for my interests, nobody's going to speak for me. If I'm going to show my talent and etc., and everything, nobody's going to notice me. But believers, in a sense, Christians, let's have a sense of restedness because the world, the things that happen to us sometimes doesn't make sense. It may be evil, treacherous, but know for sure that we have a king that is just. We have a king that rules and reigns, that is in control. Wherever you go, do what is right. Leave the outcome into God's hands. And I don't want us to go out this morning trying to evaluate others and say, oh, this guy is presumptuous, that person is greedy, or that person is self-entitled. I don't want us to do that. That's not the intention even. But I want all of us to go out of this auditorium, out of this service, to know that there is someone over and above and beyond me that I can put my trust in. He is my vindicator. He brings justice. Our Lord Jesus makes things right in our life. Sometimes we don't see it, but we know for sure that there is a God at work in our life. And that is what I want to help all of us to understand this morning. It's not just to say that I'm prideful, or I'm no good, or I'm very good, I'm too good for this. But I want all of us to know this morning that we worship someone greater and beyond than ourselves, which is King Jesus. Can I invite all of us to put aside all our things?